Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television RT. Welcome to Focus Nigeria, your Friday, your program that puts the searchlight on topic issues in the politics. My name is Benga River. Glad to be here to drive the Friday edition of the program. State of the nation calls for restructuring, calls for secession, calls for expulsion. You must go back to your own part of the country and all of that. What is the way forward for Nigeria? How do we handle all of these potentially explosive and divisive issues? That's our focus today. Dr. Sam Amadi, immediate past Executive Chairman, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, now a university teacher, is my guest today, and he will be joining me shortly. But let me exercise some editorial freedom here to make some quick comments on a developing story. In case you have not heard, detained acclaimed billionaire kidnapper Chukwudumeme Onwamadike, better known as Evans, the alleged billionaire kidnapper, has filed a second suit. He did that at the Federal High Court in Lagos on Thursday, that's yesterday. And in this fresh suit, the detained Evans is asking for 300 million naira as general and exemplary damages for alleged illegal detention, media trial, and infringement of his rights, and all of that. Joining this suit as defendants are the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, the Nigeria Police itself, and the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, Lagos. Now, apart from the claims for 300 million naira damages, Evans is also asking for an order restraining the police from further detaining, harassing, investigating, or even inviting him in relation to the facts of his case. Can you imagine? Now, the clincher is this. The affidavit in support of Evans's claim is deposed by, well, wait for it to, his father, Stephen Onwamadike, the same father who had tried to exonerate himself from the fact of his son's nefarious activities. Yes, he is the one who has now deposed to an affidavit claiming that his son is innocent, his rights are being violated, he should be set free, paid sum of 300 million naira. Here is an excerpt from one of the numerous interviews Pa Stephen granted at the time this issue was very fresh. But today, Evans has transmuted to a superstar celebrity criminal. We hear pressures are being mounted in certain quarters for him to be released and the case discontinued, even when investigations keep leading to new areas and what appears to be a well-oiled network of gangs who may even have backers or collaborators in very high places. Now, I had spoken so harshly about the handling of this case severally. I had called attention to the curious release of a major suspect, one Emeka, who must be at large now, except he's a foolish man. I had also raised concerns about how a man who so far will be a major star prosecution witness, if and when the trial of Evans and co starts, that's pharmacist Donatus Duru, who was kidnapped, kept in detention, had been fleeced of over 123 million or so. And this man has been asking for police protection. None has been given, even when the man has been raising issues about his safety. I had raised all of these concerns, and I will not go over them again. But take a listen, as I was trying to make that point, take a listen to Pa Stephen Onwamadike, that's the father of Evans, who, as I said, is the one now who has deposed on affidavits complaining of the violation of his son's rights, media trial of his son, why the police should release him, the police should be restrained from further investigating his son, Evans, and Evans should be paid 300 million naira and all of that. Just take a listen to what he said about Evans.
My daughter and him get a reasonable pass. I know I have to put them at Oba girls. My daughter himself about boys. After 3 years, after good 3 years, I had to take Dumeme, that Evans, to principal, so that principal will monitor him very, very well. Although, may he solace in perfect peace, the principal has gone. If the principal he will still tell me that what I'm talking is true. So Evans said that he will not continue. He's my son. He's my first son. He was born in 81. He came here last on 2008. That was the time I saw him. Another day I saw him was at Lagos. I went to TB Joshua. So after that 2012, I didn't see him anymore. No contact, no telephone number, nothing. If he wants to call me sometime, he will hide the number and call me. Say, I call him. If you want to call me and hide your number, don't ever call me on phone again. You can see the mansion. The mansion I built, it is what I built for myself. I started this building in 1982, October. I finished it November, February 1984. He was born in 81. So he was about 3 years before I finished the building. So how can he say that he built a mansion for me? But I'm still pleading to Nigerian, everybody he offended, that they should forgive him. Life is very, very important. Once they have life, there is hope. I have said it earlier. Let them take him to TB Joshua, because I was in TB Joshua.
A very long interview, Pastor Stephen Onwodu Meme granted to that station. Okay, is innocent till proven guilty? Yes, that's what the law says. Of course, yes. Okay, this is media trial. Okay, but do you know who I blame for all of this? Particularly the rash of court cases now coming from Evans and the father. It's the police who suddenly turned him to a celebrity. He says this, it's in the media. He says that, it's in the media. He gives this lead, even before the police begins to pursue that lead, it's in the media, even before they get to that lead. I read, for instance, since last week or so, that Evans said some powerful people in the Southeast served as informants and shared his ransom with him. I was wondering why he's the only one that is in cell at this moment, even though he had given a long list to the police. And 2 weeks ago or so, the Free Evans movement started. Hashtag Free Evans. This handling has not been tidy at all. And without detracting from the initial gallantry of the men and officers of the Inspector General's special team led by ACP Abakari, I mean, we have given too much away on this case. And some of what we have given away is what is informing this rush of litigation now by Evans. So you can't blame him too in a way. Well, enough said for today. Professor, okay. Yes, we will be getting to our discussion segment now. Like I said, Dr. Sam Amadi, the immediate past executive chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, is my guest for today. He will be joining me shortly after this break. If you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you this Friday. We're going into our discussion segment now. Dr. Sam Amadi is here, teacher, lawyer, governance expert. Okay, I already said a legal practitioner, immediate past executive chairman.
Chairman, chief executive.
Chairman, chief executive, immediate past chairman, chief executive officer of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Good to see you, Dr. Amadi.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know whether I should do this. What is the limit to which an acting president can go if power has been transmitted to him?
Limitless.
Limitless.
Section 5 of the Constitution creates the power of the president. And it says, subject to the Constitution and any law by the National Assembly, the executive power of the president of the Federation is in the president. And so if you look at the section transferring power, it says whenever the president transmits that letter, that power passes on. So what passes to the acting president is the whole plenitude of executive power. Section 5 power, none resides in the president, that is de jure, but not de facto. So we can only have one president exercising full Section 5 executive power, and that's the president that is acting. It's like when something is in doldrum, so the other president is kind of cocooned off. The reason why it's not called the president of Nigeria, we say acting, is because we anticipate that the president himself will kickstart into action. So the president is in a passive mode, inactive mode, and the acting president is exercising the full complement of Section 5 power. And don't forget that in Nigerian constitution, like the US Constitution, the executive power is in the president. It's not in the FEC. I remember before I started working with Jonathan, even when I was with Jonathan, I did a memo to him. I said, look, FEC, most of the FEC approvals are unlawful. They're not contemplated by law. It's only the president who has the power to do any approval. The president may consult with ministers, hold meetings with them, but those are basically advisory people. The power, the executive power in the federation is in the president. And once he transfers everything. It's not hedged by FEC, it's not hedged by NSA or any other officer, and the president has the right, as at now, to fire and hire, which is prerogative of executive president. So nothing is left. He has all the powers, but the political calculations, contextual considerations, the president can act.
Those
like,
are the clawbacks.
Yeah, he can act.
The unwritten clawbacks.
He can decide to act like a lame dog.
So, between a de jure president and a de facto president.
As a matter of fact, this
the de facto president is more powerful.
No, this president is both de jure and de facto, because by transferring that power, the president, we know, has divested, it's a divestment, for the purpose of everything constitutional. He has divested the jure power, the power of law as a president, to the acting president. It's just, as a matter of fact, it's like that president exists, the real president, if you like, exists legally is like in the other room, basically. You know, in
the other room.
The other room waiting to enter the stage. And as soon as he enters, this acting president evaporates, becomes his assistant, depending on whatever he wants him to do. So essentially, the president, for all purposes, is the acting president. So nothing is left. It's both de facto, it's both de jure.
If there are ministerial nominees that have been forwarded to Senate as required by the Constitution, they've been screened, nothing stops the acting president
from disallowing them,
from deploying them.
Oh, I said he has
administering the oath on them.
Deploying them. If he has the right to withdraw nominations that were made before he took over, because he's the president. So whatever the president can do, appoint, nominate, remove within the Constitution, he can do it. But this is the law. Yeah. But then prudence, pragmatism,
political
requires that he keeps the ball rolling. But at the same time, he has to be effective, meaning he has to take actions. Otherwise, he is not serving the man who has trusted him well. Because the man who trusted him well has confidence in his capability and intends that he should really act as if he's acting. So he has the right to deploy them. He has the right to cancel their nominations if he thinks they're not qualified. He has the right to do anything that his principal can do under the unwritten rule of trust and deference. This is my principle.
We are operating a constitutional order. Does that constitutional order we operate, I'm looking at the hierarchy of powers, from the executive to legislature to the judiciary. Does it anticipate any vacuum at any point in time?
No, it does not. If you look at the Constitution, first and foremost, the idea of the president running with the vice president is to
avoid the vacuum.
Exactly, to deal with the risk that's human, that the president could die suddenly in office, could be impeached, and could for any reason resign. So there's a transition. And that's why, even if the unexpected happens and two of them are missing in action for any errors, the baton passes to
there will still be vacuum.
The Senate president takes over momentarily, supervises an election to bring in new president. So essentially, two things the Constitution does not anticipate. One, the Constitution does not anticipate that there will be a proxy president. What that means is that either there's a president exercising his full minds, or there's no president. So nothing like assuming my wife, I'm not well. If I'm not well in hospital, my wife can take decisions on my behalf. For all purposes, incapacitated, waiting to be rehabilitated. My wife can act in my name. With the president, it can't happen.
She's your next of kin.
Yes, with the president, it can happen.
Politically now, the vice president is the next of kin of the president.
But the president, but if there is no transfer of power, as it has done, the vice president cannot act presumptively in the role of the president. So
except
at every time,
the National Assembly says so.
Then we say that's a transfer, either voluntary by Mr. President or by an act of law properly done. But the point I'm making is this.
Yeah. No. I mean that even when he didn't transfer.
Or if he didn't transfer, there's a constitutional provision for closure.
Because there's also constitutional provision to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Which is that the National Assembly can exercise that power on his behalf.
And transfer to. But the bigger question on political accountability, why people were asking for two things, either the transfer of power fully or Mr. President resigns, is because at every time you want to know that the President is a chief executive. So he exercises his own mind, not somebody's mind being exercised in his name. So if there's no transfer of power and the president is in Nigeria and somebody says the president is okay and somebody is issuing instruction, supposedly by Mr. President, that is a constitutional breach, and that is a defeat of prototypical the idea of executive president. So the executive president, that's why when Reagan was going for 1 hour operation, and it was going to be off
50-50 Charles,
and he would be totally demobilized,
he would be shut down. He
had to transfer to George Bush Sr. And when he resurrected, so to say, he took back power. That's the idea that the president, executive power of the president, is exercised by the president. And that means he is purposively dealing with state matter, not by his smarter friends or cabinet, by him. Absolutely. So the question then is, at any time we're not sure that the president is the one exercising, then there's a need for clarity. That's what the Constitution talks about, the medical panel. The medical panel is to establish at all times, and people mystify it, looks like it's about death and life. People can be alive but not capable of exercising function. Anybody can die, including a 1-year-old. So that's not, let's remove the more big thought about that. It's about, are you at every time fully composed to deal with state matters? So the medical panel is an opportunity to always ascertain that Mr. President is capable of doing that work. He's applying his mind, not somebody applying their mind in the name of the president. So basically, the Constitution is not personalized power. The president exercises power as a form of, as agent of the people. They voted for him. So at any time that those powers cannot be exercised for the betterment of the people, for whatever reason. The owners of the power should know. Absolutely.
The owners of the power
and the trustee would, absolutely, without say, I can't do this anymore. It's political accountability. So there's nothing personal or partisan about a call for clarity about executive power. If it is in the vice president, acting president now, because of the unfortunate circumstances, then Nigerians want to see that power being exercised by the vice president. He has a right to not to do a thing or to do a thing. So it's not a case of he must be forced to remove ministers before we say, oh, he's acting. No. If he thinks he wants to keep what his principal has done, that's part of executive decision making. So as at now, I would say the vice president is acting fully. What he fails to do, he didn't want to do. What he does, he intended to do. So that's what the law. Ready to take
responsibility for acting or not acting.
So the question we should be asking is how long will acting last, not whether he's acting. He's acting, his forbearances are his forbearances, his actions are his actions, because that's what the law stipulates. But how long will this mode, because he has his own political cloud around it. He has a sense in which, being human, there are certain things you don't want to do because of perception. He also has a sense of anticipation and anxiety of where the political ball is rolling. The sooner there's a closure, the better for everybody and for the country.
If we run a constitutional order that has anticipated all of these possibilities, is it not better to allow such constitutional order to always play out rather than allow human interference or selfish interests
Well, this
to also try to short circuit the process.
Well, this is what social scientists are now coming up. If you look at legal reform, we adapt things. We have a constitutional order that somebody apparently looks sophisticated, taking care of so many things. But what a former justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Leonard said constitutional text is different from constitutional living. Constitution has to be lived, and so that's where our evolution as a society is dysfunctional. We've not, some of the rules we have, the value system that define them, the informal institutions that underwrite those formal institutions are absent. So talk about rule of law. We have the Nigerian Constitution. We have this. For example, we're talking about Evans, the kidnapper, and the law is clear what you should do. The law is clear that you arrest him, after some time you take him to court. But because our institutional thinking is lagging behind, we are still primitive, underdeveloped. Our law is faster than us. We have those laws as shell. So it creates a sense in which you have a shell, but the real substance, which is the value system, the political culture, and the social behavior, what people call, you can call it universal cooperative order. People know that this is what they expect, this is what they should give. It's not there. So you go to police station, for example, bail is free, it's there. But then the people have an expectation of give and take. So it nullifies that law. So
but even if I give you bail,
absolutely.
should do to
appreciate the bail. Absolutely. So that's where we are. But the law is telling a lie about where we are. So our constitution is saying this is what, but where we are. And so we deliberately disregard the constitutional framework. The people under Yaradua, the people who didn't transmit the letter, knew that there was a text requiring transmission of letter. But they didn't do so. Why we are in a haste to make laws, and that's where the anti-corruption campaign is totally flawed. It's in the mode of law enforcement, and they forget that really changing society is about changing political culture, which is about changing expectation and narrative. You see, social science tells us that people behave, game theory, you behave because you think that this person will behave this way. So it's an expectation. Whether I give you a bribe is a question of what I think you expect me to do and what you will do. So if I don't think that you would take bribe, then I wouldn't give. And that's what happens when Nigerian police force goes to peacekeeping force globally. Because there's no, absolutely, there's no expectation, so there's no giving and there's no receiving. So when we are running our governance, we are running our system without a deep knowledge about the social science, methodology, and orientation of institutions and governance. So we create a shell of an institution, call it Bureau of Public Enterprises or Bureau of Public Procurement. And then the real informal structures that underline competitive and transparent procurement, it's not there. People still feel that the president or the governor or the minister ought to benefit from contracting. So they skewer the rules to get the real expectation, and that's where we are. So it's not what the law says. Where we are is where our collaborative, collective norm and behavior and expectations are right now.
Since 1999, we've experimented with this constitutional order. It's the longest in our history. No doubt we have made some progress. We have.
Well, we have, yes, sure. There's always progress based on how significant.
In what areas can we improve? For instance, one area would probably be for everybody to stick to his roles. Let the politicians stick to their roles of being particularly those who are in elected offices. Security agencies have their own rules under the Constitution. The armed forces have their own rules under the Constitution.
Okay. The question
probably become masters in each rules.
Now, the question is, how do you enforce it? You see, the assumption is that because the Constitution says something, people will do it. Take, for example, the Constitution is clear as to the role of the National Assembly. Their role is to make laws, to inquire into oversight function relating to laws they make or they want to make, relating to corruption, relating to appropriation. When I was a chief executive, I had an issue with procurement when I was trying to recruit. And I said it must go through competitive merit base. people apply, whoever pass. The committee in the National Assembly required me to first present all the breakdown according to states and bring to them. I said, that's not my job. I said, by the way, it's a committee on federal character. I said, the committee on federal character oversees Federal Character Commission, not executive agency. Oh, the Federal Character Commission is a regulator of the executive, which is me. Yeah. So the Federal Character Commission can go through my process and
check that.
And all the recruitment I did, I procured from them certification. I said, it's not for me. They say, come and give, we have to approve. I say, no, these guys approve, FCC. Then you oversight them to make sure they are following their laws. So basically, two things are working.
Did you succeed with the argument with them?
I put through everything I did. I succeeded. Either I had a bad name, I quarreled with me, but I didn't submit anything to anybody because it was unconstitutional. And when I got, I said, you've no such power. You see, legislative
I'm sure
power,
you knew what they were up to.
Because I have the advantage that apart from being a constitutional lawyer, I studied administrative law in the US, and that is the basis of our operation. So I understood what agencies are supposed to do and not to do. I understood the relationship between agency and legislature. And there's a relationship between agencies and presidency. Yeah. Ministers too, I fell out with them because I knew what my job is. The agency, a regulator must have autonomy of decision making. So nobody can change that thinking because that's the basic. And I quarrel with all the ministers. But the point I'm trying to make is that first is, we don't even have knowledge about how the institutions ought to work. We transplanted legal transplant. So you transplant it. World Bank says set up a fiscal regime. You set it up. You go to scout all over the world and see constitutional provisions. You import them. But
same way we did with the issue of procurement.
Absolutely.
And the first requirement elsewhere, where we copied it from, is that you should have a procurement council.
We refuse.
We refuse to have a procurement council.
The procurement council changes the power dynamics between the presidency and the people. You're going to get NGOs sit on the table and verify. So we put back. Exactly. Because our own...
Who wants to do that?
Because our own culture of political transparency and accountability has not got to where the law is. And we have taken the law. Yeah. And we've not progressed the cultural aspect of it. So, so first is lack of knowledge about how it works. Second is that, look, if you want to change politics, the legal institutional politics, change the politics itself, change how people are elected, change how they are accountable. So if you tell National Assembly, stay where you are, and there is no punishment if they stray away, either political punishment or legal punishment, then they will not stay where they are. The drive, the demand and supply of corruption, of money, and of power, basically, will push them to transgress those constitutional barriers. The same with the presidency. There are certain things the presidency do that they have no powers to do. But because there's a power grab, and the cost of grabbing is low, and therefore the incentive to grab is high. So we need to rebuild institutions according to insights from, especially what we now call institutional economics, insights from behavioral science. How do people behave? But finally, I think on the constitutional question is that there isn't a bigger question. People are saying, what kind of constitution are you talking about? This constitution is essentially a bargain after a political triumph. So the winning party wrote a constitution to serve their interests. That's the idea of restructuring. So the far right or the far left on restructuring are saying referendum, because why? We really need to negotiate the basis of our coming together on matter of equality. So other people say, well, restructuring, let's devolve power to lower levels. People say it's not enough. Other people say, restructuring, just change some rules. So Nigeria is actually in a very uncharted conversation, not well defined. What are we talking about? The truth is that the Nigerian nation state has failed. I look at it, has failed in an economic sense. We're not able to produce sufficient quality, efficiency, goods and services. Institutions have broken down, and this is not about this government, it's about cumulative failures. Two, it has failed in a more normative sense, in the sense that the constituents of Nigeria, whether ethnic groups, religious groups, don't have confidence in the regulatory process of Nigeria. So today we're talking about curriculum, whether Christian religious knowledge or Islamic religious knowledge, and the argument is that, oh, they have nullified, they have embedded Christian knowledge in a general, nondescript religious value and training, and then they have made Arabic history standalone, Islamic standalone. So those are allegations, and if you look at, I've looked at the documents, and they are right, because essentially Government arrogates to itself the right to decide what concerns government, for example, with people's religion. It might look extreme. They don't have to care about it. There should be an open market of religious education. If you like to acquire religious education, go to religious school. So they add it as their own addition to a national curriculum. It should not be part of national curriculum. Our people argue that's the problem with Nigeria. So our constitutional order, started from 1959 conference in London, made an error of what I called religious exceptionalism, creating religion as something the state should care about. I had a conversation with a former president of Indonesia, Walid, a leading Islamic cleric in Harvard in those days. And I said, why did Indonesia remove Sharia law? And he was very emphatic. He said, even though they are 80 to 90% Muslims, they didn't want to create a public Sharia law. It should be a personal law. And Nigeria stands alone among most of the Commonwealth countries then, countries that pull out of British, that made that error. And that error is polarizing, disturbing the country. Why can't we pull the state away from getting involved in religion? Sure. I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian, but that's not a business. So it becomes personal. The same with ethnicity. Why does the Nigerian constitution continues to talk about, or Nigerian politics talk about ethnic identity? We think we are pandering to our diversity, but we're actually reinforcing our lack of differences and incoherence. So essentially, the Nigerian constitutional order has two options now, if you ask me. One is to create a real democratic federal constitution that is based on a unitary citizenship. And by the way, this is important. Even those who are asking for true federalism, in a true federalism, there's only one citizenship.
Yeah, that of Nigeria.
Nigeria. So what happens is that it's a federalism of federal and states. There's no state citizenship in the terms of fathers' birth. No, it's a state of residence. So if you have a true federalism, then you have one Nigerian citizen. Then if I live in Kano, born in Kano, stayed in Kano, I become a Kano citizen, a Nigerian citizen. But Nigeria has created an oddity where we talk about a Nigerian citizen and a citizen of your father's place of original, for fathers. Some people's fathers were born in diaspora, if you like, in Lagos, in Kano, in Abuja. And those children are now being afflicted with a sub-citizenship.
Settler.
Absolutely. So, are you a federal state? No, you're a confederal state. Because you've created two citizenship. And nation states have evolved together with the concept of citizens. So, if you watch, a nation state is a state that has one citizenship. So, if you have three nation states, they have three citizenships. Then, if in your nation state, you now have two conflicting citizenships, then you're no longer a nation state. Therefore, you're no longer a federal state. You are now more of a confederal or a complexity of nations. So Nigeria has to make a choice. If we want to be a one federal state, then we have one citizenship. And therefore, the criminal and unconstitutional so-called quit notice given to the Igbos, which is laughable but very tragic, it will not come in place. Why? Why would you ask anybody? There's no northern region. There's only states and federation. Constitutionally, that's one. Two, there's nobody who is a citizen of northern region. There's only people who are citizens of Nigeria who have residence in states. Yeah. In states. So those states happen to populate geographical expanse called north-south, or if you like, political geopolitics called north-east, south, northwest, north-central. That is what we've forgotten. So our political speak and our political text confuse our constitutional order. If we are going to be a country of one citizenship, then government should de-emphasize in public law ethnicity and religion, and emphasize citizenship. Two, so allow people to discriminate in their private domain. It's not bad if a Igbo girl says she will not marry Edo or Yoruba man in their private domain. But anytime a state, for example, people are talking about, there's a case in Kotawapi, in Borno State, where a state used state resources to establish Islamic education, or in the South, used the resources to promote Christian education, on the guise that they are Islamic or Christian state. That's rubbish. There's no such state in Nigeria. So if we prefer that outcome of religious exceptionalism, then we should create a new constitutional order that is co-federal. So you find yourself in southwest. You are a Yoruba predominantly, and therefore you are probably Christian, Muslim, or Islam, as the case might be in the southwest. Then I know that when I'm in southwest, even though I'm a Nigerian, I am not a citizen of southwest. So it becomes a loose arrangement where different territories cohabit. Yeah, go ahead.
This suggestion you are making, or this point you just made now about federation, confederation, takes us back to the argument about how we started as on a parliamentary system of government that emphasized regionalism and all of that. Is regionalism or that parliamentary system of government embedded in regionalism that time? Is it same as confederalism?
Okay, in a sense.
Or is it close to it?
Yes, in a sense, the constitution of the 1963 constitution says federal, we call it Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay,
Yes.
but there are two things you should bear in mind.
Even though the regions had
but they had constitution. So those constitution, the idea of a constitution, the grand norm, is to define. So that constitution would perhaps define how power will be exercised in those territories, who becomes a citizen of that territory. So my argument is this: we can have so-called federal states in Nigeria that is based on regional arrangement, which is one of the strongest arguments flying now. But what that means that we're going to have 3 constitutions, and those constitutional order with their National Assembly being supreme legislative entities in those areas can define by law who becomes citizens. So, for example, it could be that if you come from another region and have stayed 10 years and have done X, Y, Z and has paid tax up to this period of time, then you can become a citizen. And then it can define how you can lose citizenship. But those things will be defined by constitutional order. So in that regional framework, we know exactly our limits. We know that even though I belong to a federal republic called Nigeria, I am more of a member of the Southeast region, which has its own constitution, which has its own constitutional order, and whose legislature is actually supreme. If you look at the argument, the legislature of the regions would concede some central issue to the federal, but those legislatures in those regions will be supreme in terms of those more significant issues affecting. So the theory of subsidiarity, you decentralize, you reduce local things to local governance. It makes sense. It's a theory that makes sense. But at the same time, you can't take two things at the same time. You cannot centralize economy, centralize oil wealth, centralize VAT, centralize everything. At the same time, decentralize the tie, the nexus between state and people, which is citizenship. So either you decentralize economy, decentralize resources, revenue, decentralize security and all that, and then decentralize identity. That's how it works. So the problem is that we are incoherent. We centralize resources, centralize VAT, centralize security, and then we decentralize citizenship, the real definition of a nation state. That's both theoretically false, silly, and self-damaging. That's why 50 years and more, we have no national unity, no national narrative. I mean, it's a shame that in Nigeria we could be issuing quit orders against ourselves. It's a shame in Nigeria some people, after, they say history, Kamal says history comes first as a tragedy, the second time as a farce. If history repeats itself, it's a tragedy. It shows that something's wrong. So for me, the intervention at this point is that we should go back to the root and look at our constitutional order and define what we want. If you don't want to be one, and we don't want the state to define everybody as one and become agnostic of other identities, whether you're Yoruba, Igbo, religion. If you don't want that, then we should create an order that minimizes this violence. We have created a system that doesn't work, a system that often now and then unleashes violence on citizens. And look at the number of deaths that has happened across everywhere, whether from Biafra protesters who are shot down, or whether from people in the southwest, or people from the north, or people from north central. Needless deaths because of a state that lacks coherence, that lacks definition, and that's wobbling, theoretically and practically.
All right. Calls for restructuring that are strident. We've been restructuring since 1960. We've restructured from that system of government, parliamentary, regional system. We restructured to a unitary system of government. After several years, that gave birth to a presidential system of government that is in every presidential federalism,
Absolutely.
which is in every way completely different from federalism elsewhere. They say ours is homegrown. I don't know at what time we planted that federalism and then grew and then germinated suddenly in 1979.
Yes.
If it is not that we just try to cloak years of military unitarism
Absolutely.
in the cloak or in the garb of presidential system of government. And it's restructure, that a form of restructure that brought us there.
Yeah.
From regions to states, 12 states to 19, 19 to, was it 26 or 27? Before we found ourselves where we are now. And the idea of restructuring that some people are still talking about is still along that same line. Okay, 37 states, some people still want to be governors. They can't actualize that dream within the context we have now. Create more states so that they can actualize their dream of ruling over a state and all of that. Oh, okay, the Lagos has 20 local governments. Why should Kano, that was 5 divisions, where Lagos was 5 divisions, Kano has divided into 2 states of Kano and Jigawa. Lagos is still Lagos. Lagos has 20 local governments. Kano alone, that came out of the old Kano, has 46 or so. And all of those arguments, never-ending arguments. That's the way some people are seeing the restructuring.
Yep.
Are they fundamental enough if we keep restructuring along that line? Because don't forget that is how corruption too has also continued to be restructured into every system. Because when you restructure, you end up having more bureaucracy in terms of maybe states, local governments. States will create bureaucracies within their states in forms of MDAs and all of that. You keep replicating corruption everywhere.
Absolutely. You know, like you rightly pointed out, today, I think I heard one of the governors from the north yesterday argue about...
That would be El-Rufai?
Yes, about restructuring, and said maybe opportunist. And people have taken him to the sweepers, cleaners on Twitter. But the point I think he's making is that restructuring is not a political hot potato. So everybody, it's political ball. Everybody's playing it first and foremost. So it makes sense. I mean, we are between the devil and the deep sea. We are between breakdown, aka Biafra agitation, or restructure. And so willy-nilly people are moving towards the big guns are coming out. IBB has signed up. Atiku signed up a long time ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if APC power parachute are still pulling back, but they will sign up, I mean, as a compromise. And that's the Nigerian problem. Nigerian constitutional development has always followed the path of least resistance. Compromise. In 1959, before independence, there was so much hue and cry about marginalization. The South people say, oh, we are dead. Before you got the Willis Commission report. Willis came, and the idea was, how do you do this? Okay, fine. To deal with that perception, let's create a fundamental human rights framework. Let's create representation, and then encourage, fine. If 1959, at the backdrop of independence, the question of how do we deal with religion, and we had what I call the original sin. The original sin of Nigerian founding fathers was not having tough and defining the Nigerian secular character very clear. And ever since, everything was struggling is balancing, and it doesn't work. I'm a little bit an expert in religion and democracy, and I can say that the theory of accommodation, the theory of balancing, equality, okay, so we give 5% to Christians, we give 5% to Muslims, sooner or later it won't work, because somebody will allege that the 5% you gave them is on area that is stronger, and somebody will allege an allegation. That's what we're seeing now. We saw it with the issue about Sharia, the Sharia courts. We saw it with a bill on criminal Sharia. We see it now with the debate over curriculum. That's the Nigerian compromise. In 1979, another compromise, 78-79 Constitution, another compromise. This Constitution, if I teach constitutional law, if you look at the Constitution, Nigerian Constitution, you see what I call unprincipled compromise here and there, contingencies, ad hoc. So an issue comes up, we just cut it to respond to political issue. So should we give a executive president? Yes, but then cut back. Should we have citizens? Yes, but this. Everything is not coherent, because the Nigerian politics has not been coherent. It has been about power struggle between ethnic religions, power struggle. So that struggle creates this contingent settlement that, over some time, it unravels. So we moved from federal republic. Then after the military, we got unitary government, military unitary government. Okay, and then we moved gradually to a federal republic in terms of name, but not in reality. So today we're running a federal republic that looks more like a unitary system of government. So, and now people are talking about restructuring. So what about restructuring? Somebody says, some people are talking more about devolving more power. Does that really deal with the deep-seated incoherence in a constitutional order? It does not. Some people are saying, disband this, this doesn't work. And then convoke a national sovereign conference of Nigerians, people, wherever they are, they gather together and they create a new beginning. See, this is the order. Of course, if you know anything about government, for the past 12 years, I've been working either as an advisor in government. So that's how government thinks. Government will not allow itself to take the ball off their hand and then create something new. So that may not fly. Some people say, okay, the best thing is for us to go the referendum way. Those who are today privileged are not going to drop the ball, except they see that their so-called privilege is in real danger. So changes have come because of momentous event, and that's probably the only saving grace in this ugly play-out of ethnic quarrels here and there. Maybe the Nigerian undertakers and those who have insured this country, and people say their aircraft landed some time ago. Maybe they can come together and say,
the shareholders.
Yes, that say as insurers, undertakers, I think this is not going to work. This is morbid. We need to retrace our steps. We need to redefine it, and that redefinition will come, in my view, with perhaps two things. Even the Jonathan 2014 Constitutional Conference, very good, can be a starting point. But really, if you throw it back to the National Assembly, think about the political play-out that you're going to get there. Think about the configuration of power in terms of numbers, and think about the issues being uploaded. There will be shorter. So basically, when Nigeria gets itself out of this wood, it looks difficult because
that's a big question.
It looks difficult because like what we're not learning from the governance theory is that when we talk about change, the question is how will you motivate those who ought to bring the change to sign up? So question.
Because it's a disempowerment.
Absolutely. So if you throw it back to National Assembly today and say, let's take for example, that change the local government, mothball everything into states and federation, which is what it's supposed to be. That means revenue calculations will be on equality at the minimum. So some people are going to carry the emptier pocket. Would they fight back? Would they see sense and say, this is national interest? We don't know. Do you have enough corporate? They will see that if you have created a country normatively where people see themselves as the same, but if you are creating a country where there's deep-seated fear and distrust and a sense of what we call particularistic political culture, we are all particular, we are different, we are disintegrated, then those actors will be mirroring the perception of the groupthink, their own groupthink, and they say no, so they stalemate, they play hardball. So can the Nigerian political culture, political institution, carry a framework to resolve this problem? Or are we going to resort to a new suppression of dissent, which is what this quit notice seems like, a calculated, rough tackle to keep the disempowered, the discontented, the angry, to keep them silent, waiting for a new implosion. My guess is that short of a newfound strength, moral courage, political courage, the Nigerian crisis is going to drag. And to think about the economic impact, the cost of this crisis, we know from the latest World Bank Human Development Report of 2017, argues clearly, we talk about growth, sustainable growth. It's not just about how many your GDP is growing, it's about relative peace. You're going to have a 10-year, 20 years, no outbreak of violence to consolidate improvement. So if Nigeria launches into a war, no matter how defined, maybe even if it's a small level war, will first perception of stability.
Boko Haram was a small level war.
Perception of stability goes down, investment nosedives, even quality of political action for investment in infrastructure goes down. So essentially,
and it takes years again
to come up. So
I
think we have two options: either to do something radical and save ourselves, or to remain
That's something radical that we need to do. I'm going to ask you how now. But let me see if I can get one or two tweets that you could also respond to, or whatever. If Mogbala Mbab says, if not for former head of state Gowon's regional government, Nigeria would by now have been El Dorado of sort, with each region thriving successfully. Is that myth or reality? Dele Jackson merge Ogagwega, as it stands now, Nigeria is sitting under a keg of gunpowder. Are we sitting under it or over? At the verge of collapse. Please tell Nigerians to live peacefully. That's what we're trying to do. Nigeria, as it's constituted, that the president is made to favor the northern hemisphere in terms of political mathematics. We must do something ASAP. That's Omogbola again. Larry Tugbeyele, this man look and talk intelligently. I'm surprised why he didn't tackle all the discourse. I had thought that I would actually have time to take you up.
I will answer you.
Well, that's if we have time. We continue to deceive ourselves in Nigeria as long as we hold on to the present half-assed structure. It's a wicked arrangement. I ask you, if we had to have a peaceful way out of all of this, the question is how? Biafra, the narrative, for me, there have been two Biafras. The Biafra, the original Biafra, and the Biafra that some people are espousing now. The narratives are different. The narratives of the original Biafra is, or was predicated on injustice, inequality, and how to address it, which was why there was long negotiation between the major actors. Ojukwu leading the one side and Gowon leading the other side. There was a long period of negotiation. It was because they were not making headway that the civil war broke out. But the Biafra narrative of now seems not want to also realize that if it is injustice and inequality we are talking about, perhaps everybody will have something to complain about if we come together with a view to, okay, what is your problem? What is my problem? Table your problem. How do we solve all of our problems?
I think you're right. I mean, first and foremost, my own preference is well known. I've been an advocate of what I call democratic citizenship, that a nation state must have everybody just seen as citizens. So I'm comfortable with just being a Nigerian and being allowed to experience full citizenship right in Sokoto, in Kano, in Abeokuta.
That's what you are concerned.
That's what I would like. But you see, the problem is this. You said the first Biafra. I did a paper for the U.S. Holocaust Museum in 2002, I think. And that paper argues that what the Igbos faced before Biafra was not genocide as such. It was what I called mass violence based on a strategy of containment. Let's keep these Igbos down. It wasn't people told, because if they wanted to kill all Igbos, why did they stop from finishing everybody when the war was and their momentum was with them? So there was no sense in which they wanted to wipe out Igbos, unlike what you may see in other people. Then this new Biafra is also seen, you are right, by saying Nigeria has failed everybody. So in a sense, we are all Biafrans. Exactly. That point.
In a sense, we are all Biafrans.
So there are two levels. The socio-economic sense in which Nigeria has failed us to produce security, food, health care. So all of us ought to be complaining. But Nigeria has two narratives. There's the Nigerian narrative of socio-economic impact. There's the narrative Nigeria of ethnic religious hijack. Now that narrative says that yes, we are all suffering, but at the same time, we the Igbos, that's the narrative, are suffering more because they don't want us. So once there's a sense in which you don't want us, and I think the only mistake this government made, maybe symbolic, maybe unfortunate, was that rhetoric about 85 and 5.
95
and 5. For example, look at it this way. The Igbos didn't vote for you because they didn't trust you, good or bad. They say you are hegemonist, they say you are a feudalist, you are whatever, and you are not. The first thing you should have done is to address that and welcome them. But somehow, by miscommunication, maybe not intended, you get the sense that we are against it. So when people say,
they were right.
When people say, why didn't Biafra get so hot under Buhari and other, I said one thing: Biafra has always been there, but it was a Biafra of narrative, of a sense of, oh, what we missed. But once Jonathan was there, Jonathan created the impression that he was comfortable with Igbo people. He had no problem with Igbo, even though he didn't build the second Niger bridge. People didn't count it. They wanted a sense of accommodation. They didn't find it now. What they thought is that this man is against us. So it's a symbolic communication. Give them a sense of belonging. And so, but for me, I think we don't need any Biafra. Biafra is a creation of Nigerian failure. And Biafra is not wished away by simply saying we oppose to Biafra. change the game, create a Nigeria where everybody is a citizen. Otherwise, Biafra is just down the horizon.
Dr. Sam Amadi, I would have loved to go on and on and on and on with you, and I'm sure viewers at home too are also very, very interested in this passionate communication that we've had this morning. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Sam Amadi is a law teacher, former, or the immediate past actually, the immediate past Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. A friend of almost 30 years now. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Thank you, Benga.
That's Focus Nigeria. I'll see you next week. Enjoy the weekend and do everything in moderation.